We got a Thursday night game, Saints versus Broncos, and this is going to be a tricky matchup for fantasy football. We got two rookie quarterbacks. We got injuries on both sides of the ball. We got some new pieces added to the fantasy football mix in this matchup. New players that could surface to be productive for this week. But we got to tread these waters lightly because this is going to be a very impactful game. It's on a Thursday as well, so a short week. So things could get rather tricky here. But before we deep dive this matchup, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're the only fantasy football channel out there doing deep dives on these games, doing deep dives on players every day. And on top of that, we're using these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint him. Broncos Saints, though. 37 over-under. Implied point total is low. One of the lowest implied point totals for the week. Fundamental-wise, when you're looking at this matchup, you're not really excited about any of the fantasy producers here. However, if you're hurting, you're in a pinch, some of these guys you're going to be looking at because they're not going to be highly sought-after assets for this week. More than likely, you're going to be able to pluck a guy or two off waivers or put a guy in a DFS lineup that's contrarian. Depending on what tournaments you're playing in. Cash games, you're probably staying away unless you're just playing this game straight up. Looking at the history of this matchup, the games are too far back to really look at that. So the historical over-unders are not going to really help us. But we're looking at two rookie quarterbacks here that have some gusto, that are very impactful for fantasy football one way or another. Spencer Rattler last week, it was up and down. He looked like a rookie. He had some moments where he flashed a little bit, and he had some rookie moments too. But he will push the ball downfield. He had some confidence to him for a first ever start, especially for a late round pick. Bo Nix, we know this Broncos team, slow paced, a lot of clock ran between plays, run the ball a good bit. We dink and we dunk it. We're not always going to hit 200 passing yards. Spencer Rattler did last week, but that game script blew wide open. This game script's probably not going to blow wide open. We have two very competent defenses, even though there's injuries here. We'll get on that later. That being said, when you look at these two quarterbacks in a vacuum for fantasy football, starting them, most people in traditional leagues are not starting these quarterbacks. They're just not doing it. They have other options. More than likely, if you are, you're in a 2 QB league, you're in a deeper league, you're in a league 16 teams or more, that you're looking at these two quarterbacks and you're potentially starting them, or you're really hurting at quarterback. You made some wrong turns. There's some guy hoarding quarterbacks in your league for some reason. That sometimes happens, and you got to start one of these guys. If I had to pick between the two, it's a wishy-washy one here. Maybe Spencer Rattler due to the volume and the nature of the offense. However, it's a coin flip between the two, and I don't think many of you guys are making that coin flip anyways. When we look at the Denver running backs, we know there's going to be workload here for both of them. We look at Javonte Williams, and he's been getting the touches lately. It's very advantageous in this matchup, at least for like a 10 spot, 12 spot for fantasy production. The workload will be there. He's getting work in the passing game. It looks like there's going to be some opportunity for him to do something for fantasy football for us. I don't expect it to be grand. I don't expect him to be Sean Tucker out there. But Sean Tucker did exploit some things, and also Bucky Irvin did some things as well. But you're looking at Bijan Robinson. You're looking at Rico Dowdle. Miles Sanders week 1. That was a game script that got blown wide open. So honestly, do not really want to look at that because this is going to be a tighter game script, or should be. But you're looking at this, there's potential here for this running back. However, if you're shooting for upside and you got an upside play on Sunday that you want to go with, you may want to take that gamble. I think he's going to be steady. I think Jaleel McLaughlin's going to have some work in the passing game as well. And both these running backs might do something. I think Javonte Williams has better odds. I think both of them, depending on your situation, you might be looking at the start as like an RB2 type deal on your team, RB3. Also, depending on how many guys you're starting in your lineup. Like, if you're starting like 5 flexes, 3 flexes, you're looking at these running backs. There's a lot of different types of leagues out there. That's why the You Need series is so impactful for a lot of people, because traditional leagues, a lot of the players I talk about aren't worth the time. But there's also millions of leagues out there where they're starting like 5, 6, 7 flexes out there, multiple running backs, multiple wide receivers, multiple tight ends, and they need the deep dives. Javonte Williams has potential to produce in this matchup through volume. Volume will allow you to fall into fantasy points in the right matchup. This is the right matchup for him to accidentally do so. Look for 10 to 12, I think 15 on the high, I think 8 on the low. This isn't like going to be a high-scoring game, so there might be limited opportunities. I think Jaleel McLaughlin has opportunities too. I think he'll get some work. I look for him to get 8 to 10 opportunities in this matchup, and if he can cross the goal line, if he can catch a few balls and get some yak off that, he could be a good producer this week as well. But things got to work their way. Things got to happen, but that's how it could shake up in this matchup. For the passing game, this is going to be very interesting. Courtland Sutton's getting the volume. He's rocking an elite 25% target share, and he's getting the work every single week. Depending on the volume of this game and what happens, Courtland Sutton might be a guy you're just starting. Depending on what your lineup looks like week to week, Courtland Sutton might be just an automatic start for you anyways because he's getting a lot of targets. I look for him to get a fair amount of targets this week. They're about league average or a little bit more to wide receivers when it comes to allowing fantasy points. Vele's coming on strong. If you're plucking wide receivers off the waiver wire and you're looking for a guy to play with in matchups here and there, this could be a matchup to play with, but Vele's a guy that should be picked up because he's getting a lot of volume, especially that short work, and he's going to be getting better throughout the season. Troy Franklin is a guy to watch in this game. Watch Troy Franklin. We're at Thursday night. It's prime time. Watch his snaps, watch his targets, watch where his routes are at. He's not startable unless you're like in a 16, 18, 20, 22 team league or something like that, or have deeper benches, deeper rosters, whatever it is. Courtland Sutton is a guy you're going to scratch your head on, but he's going to get you targets. For this game, I would expect 5 target range to 6, 7. I do not expect 10. I do not expect him to get like 3. I expect him to get a moderate amount of work, and I expect it to be a couple deep shots, maybe 1 or 2, to really push his air yards. I really expect that to happen for Courtland Sutton. That being said, he's a fringe start for some people and a must start for others. That being said, it really depends on how deep you are at wide receiver. Looking at the tight end spot, you're probably looking the other way. Greg Dulcich has been a healthy scratch these last couple weeks. Lucas Krull has been getting some work in the passing game, but really not enough volume to really look at for fantasy. If you are starting one in DFS or anything like that, you're really just hoping for a touchdown, a cheap one off the salary cap. That being said, you know what you're doing with these tight ends. You're just praying you get one in the end zone, and you're going with that. Alvin Kamara, you just start him and roll with it. This isn't an advantageous matchup. The Broncos are league average against running backs. They'll allow some fantasy points. They're bend but don't break. You can tell that down below with the top performers against them. Kenneth Walker, 18.9 PPR fantasy points, but that game script broke. J.K. Dobbins last week with 18.2. He got a ton of volume in that matchup. And then you got Amir Abdullah, 14.1. Last 2 weeks, they have been bending to these running backs. I look for Alvin Kamara to get the workload. I look for him to get opportunities. I look for him to hit double digits. Easy double digits. Maybe RB2 production out of him. Could be more because he is Alvin Kamara. I'm never going to bet against him. I don't ever really project him busting in any games, but that is potential because you got to have 1 or 2 games out of the year where you're going to bust, but you're not going to look forward to that when you're obviously averaging 22.8 PPR points per game. You're starting Alvin Kamara. Even if you don't like the matchup, you're starting Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave out. Rashid Shaheed out. Bub Meads is in. On top of that, Patrick Surtain is out. The PS2 is out, and he's not going to be in. All love to the PS2, my favorite console of all time. That being said, Bub Meads is going to be the head scratcher in this matchup. There could be targets going his way. It was last week. If that being said, and you're chasing targets, then you're going to be chasing Bub Meads. But that does not mean it's going to lead to fantasy production. This game's rather volatile. I do not recommend starting him over your basic starters that you're starting in every week. However, if you want to take a chance, I do see him getting targets in this matchup. And it could go 5 to 8. It could be more. It really depends on how this cookie crumbles. But I do not expect this to be a high-scoring game. PS2 is out, so that's going to alleviate some things in the passing game, but you also got a rookie quarterback. There's a lot of variables in this matchup. That's why I said you got to tread the waters lightly. I look at him as a gamble with some upside. And when you do a start-sit question with him, you really have to look at what you got. Do you want to look at the wide receiver that you have on your bench that you know a little bit more about, that may not be getting as much targets or projected to get that, but you know might be hitting around 5 for the week and is okay? Or are you going to chase Bub Means, who got 8 targets last week, might get that or more this week, more than likely 5 to 8 range, maybe 9, maybe 7, something like that, and you're hoping that he just soaks up the workload and it doesn't go into any other areas like Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton, or the tight ends, or maybe a lot of Alvin Kamara. I'd be riding Alvin Kamara's coattails very hard in this matchup. That being said, I look at him as an upside gamble due to the touches and workload that could be potentially in this game. I look at him as a lot of downside as well, but if you need to chase the upside, you want to do that on a Thursday night, it's your team. But I do see upside with this play. I do see it rather dangerous as well. But we're also looking at Juwan Johnson here, and I see him getting funneled some targets because these wide receivers are out. I look for him or Foster Moreau to get it. One of them are going to do something here. I believe targets are going to be there. That doesn't mean it's going to be fancy points. Also, it's probably likely one of them getting the end zone. If they're around the red zone area, that they're going to be targeting that way. That being said, when I'm looking at these tight ends, if I don't have like a top 10 tight end, I might be looking at this matchup. I might be looking at that. Again, teams are going to funnel targets to the tight end when you have a guy like PS2 out there. Brock Bowers doesn't really count for me because he's more like a wide receiver if you really look at that. Like, you have to have another Brock Bowers-esque wide receiver to really make that comparison. But maybe like 7-ish to 8-ish fantasy points out of one of these tight ends. And then the touchdown, the dice roll, the gamble, if he scores or get into the end zone. That being said, tight ends are going to tight end. I think there's going to be other matchups on Sunday you want to play, but it's going to be a lower scoring game. That's going to impact things. That's going to impact the upside on some of these gamble players, because if there's more points scored in a matchup, that means there's more upside for the gamble players. That being said, when you're looking at tight end, you're chasing targets, you're chasing snaps, you're chasing routes. There's going to be some targets in this matchup. That's the Thursday night matchup. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Who are you starting from this game? I want to hear about it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.